teen girls here in the U.S. experience record high levels of violence, sadness, and suicide risk in recent years amid significant and heartbreaking declines in youth health and well-being overall. Now, the survey found increasing mental health challenges, experiences of violence, and suicidal thoughts and behaviors among our teenagers. So here to talk about those findings and what parents, what schools can do. Right now, joining us live is Dr. Liat Jarkhan. She's a psychiatrist, director at the Center for Behavioral Health at New York Institute of Technology's College of Osteopathic Medicine, an associate professor with the Department of Family Medicine, and a specialist in child, adolescent, and adult psychiatry. And Dr. Nissim-Matheis is a licensed clinical psychologist, certified school psychologist, and founder of Psychological and Educational Consulting in Livingston, New Jersey. So do remember, we want to hear from you for the next half hour. We will answer your questions. You can submit them now under the live stream of this show on our Facebook pages. So we do know, we take a look at this data and, we see that teen girls across the country are just engulfed in a growing wave of violence and trauma. And this is coming from federal researchers. So Dr. Jarkhan, I'm going to start with you. When you take a look at this data, it makes me sad.
It's definitely staggering. The CDC came out with this study, and I think they looked at 20,000 students in various school districts, private schools, public schools across the country. And I think that it is sad, but we have to learn from it, take a look at what the data suggests, and then figure out strategies to help undo it.
Yeah, and Liz, we take a look, nearly 1 in 3 high school girls reporting that in 2021, they seriously considered suicide. That's up almost 60% from just a decade ago.
It's overwhelming. Friendships, I think the pandemic has had a lot of impact, and we're seeing the post-pandemic implications of years of isolation and just a change in socialization, academics, and all of that, family life.
Yeah, Dr. Jarkhan, I want to mention one of the other points of data because it's just so shocking. Almost 15% of teen girls said they were forced to have sex.
I read that as well, Elizabeth, and it was very upsetting. There's so many factors that could be potentially related to that. And one of the things that I thought about was the pandemic, obviously, and this idea of being emotionally starved. A lot of people were disconnected and they were looking for that connection. In addition to that, it was kind of like a perfect storm. A lot of people started increasing their alcohol use and drug abuse and perhaps making poor choices and not setting boundaries and not being in safe situations. And I don't know who these perpetrators were. It wasn't stated, but, I think you could think of a lot of scenarios where this could lead to that.
Yeah. I do, what you were just mentioning there really doesn't give enough information about this, but it's like we need to learn more so that we can actually do something. So, Dr. Matheis, I want to talk about these, 2 possible manifestations, so either acting out or pulling in. So for parents or for educators and schools to know, when someone's in trouble, what that might look like.
So there are absolutely 2 ways for any teenager to react, and that is to act out or to withdraw and pull in. I'm thankful for the kids who do act out because it lets us know something is happening. So we're seeing kids who are refusing to do work, or refusing to go to school, refusing to participate, or being really loud and distractive and interrupting the class. And those are the kids that are telling us, without telling us, there's something going on. And so our natural inclination is to become punitive. But I truly, truly encourage all parents and teachers, administrators, that when you see this, please turn the framework to this is a bad child, to this is a child who's struggling, and we need to figure out what's happening. And there's usually a multitude of reasons. Talk to them, build a relationship with them. And I'm speaking to parents and schools. For kids who turn in, they withdraw, they isolate. This is the population of kids that we really have to be very open to and look for it, because they are going to blend in. And usually we see the squeaky wheel gets the most attention. So when a child is turning in, they kind of blend in, they're quiet, so they're very easy to miss. But when you start to see that there's a change in the way that they're functioning, that they're participating less, they're isolating, and that they're not sitting with friends at lunch, or they're not socializing the way that they used to, or they're not participating in any extracurriculars, these are the things you want to take note of, so that you can then also build a relationship with that child and let them have a place of support and comfort in school and at home. Because there's several ways that any child is going to let us know what's happening without using their words and coming up and saying, hey, I'm struggling for X, Y, and Z reason. They're not equipped with that language yet. That concept of self-advocacy, that self-awareness, it's not yet there. And especially it's not there now. And I'm seeing that our kids need a lot of help in identifying how they feel, and then put it into words, and then ask for help. So it's a process that we really need to support them in building those skills.
Yeah, and in supporting them, Dr. Jarkhan, I also wonder about the strategy a school can play, whether it is, a school, a high school or elementary school, or even for you, a college campus.
I think that there's many things that the school can do. And I think the school is really a great start for having proactive agendas. And that could include educating parents and children with evidence-based policies, things that have worked before. Screening, we do that now at our medical school, where we have screening for suicide prevention. It's something that can be taken and done on many, many levels. Screen out for violence, for bullying, for drug and alcohol abuse. The more information we ascertain from our students and the community, the better we know what to focus on in terms of initiatives that we need to do. So I would highly recommend that the schools do that. Offer groups. This is a collective trauma, even if you think about the pandemic's effects. And again, this emotional starvation that people had and the connectedness that is missing. It's a collective trauma. And so if we have groups and students feel that everyone is going through this, it's less stigmatized, and there's resiliency in groups, and it can really help out. One of the things the study pointed out was that 60% of the students feel connected to the school, which sounds great, but that means that 40% are not, and that's a problem. And additionally, the same thing, the study was saying that about 80% of the students say, we know the parents kind of know where we are most of the time, but that leaves 20% where parents have no idea. So again, the schools can do a lot to educate the parents and the children and help to undo this, the way things are evolving right now.
Yeah, and Liz, I know, for people, it can be a struggle to even find a counselor, let alone be able to have someone that you can have a relationship with that's the right fit and that you can see on a consistent basis.
There are wait lists everywhere for all sorts of emotional and medical support. And I speak to that on a very personal level. And I'm making the calls, and I'm not getting the return calls, and I'm struggling to make the appointments and get on the wait list. And you're absolutely right. If I can piggyback a little bit on what Dr. Jarkhan just said, in terms of we need more support in the schools. And I know that there are several districts around us who are hiring more counselors to just be present to our kids, because there is a mental health crisis and there isn't enough support, no matter what, unless we can somehow cultivate more therapists and put them out there. We're going to have to respond by having more supports in the school and having more counselors that are available to our students, but also bringing awareness to our students, because I think this is what happens normally in adolescence, is our kids think I'm the only one who's struggling, and they feel very ashamed, and they don't want to reach out to anyone because, and I hear this in my own home, no one else feels this way. Clearly, I sit in a seat where I know that other kids feel this way. So building that awareness of people struggle, you're struggling, it's okay, it's coming as a result of the pandemic. I don't know if there's enough discussion about that, but also saying and making kids aware as much as possible. And I don't know exactly how to do this. I just know that we need to build our kids' awareness that these are the signs of you being anxious. These are the signs of you being depressed. Right. These are the signs of you struggling in some way, even if you don't have a name for it. But making kids aware that it's okay if you feel this way. There's no stigma and there's no shame in it.
All right, coming up next, our conversation on mental health does continue straight ahead. Up live right now on news12.com, we have a guide to mental health resources specific to your area. You just scan that QR code, you see it there on your screen, and it will get you right to the area on our site. You can also join the conversation live on Facebook right now. Hello to everybody on Facebook. Okay, I just want to really quickly try to time this out. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so we have 11 comments in 7 minutes. I want to just read you an additional one that says, being enclosed and having no touch, no feeling of personal space. I feel so bad for my children and grandchildren. I feel even the counselors need more teaching as well as the teachers. It's affecting so many and so heartbreaking. So that's from Carol from New York. So let me just try to see how many we have on social media. And the first one is that parents need to get off social media and engage with the kids. Addie is talking about, imagine being, a 15-year-old and, seeing all the kids getting together and you're not there and you're not invited. Steve also wants to get kids off of social media and learning how to deal. Karen, can we move Steve next to Melissa? Thank you. And Rochelle at the top of that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to group 3 of them together. Rochelle, Melissa, and Steve. So all of those are on social media in some way, shape, or form. And then I will kind of go in between the 2 of you for the rest of them. So I'll group those 3 together. Melissa, Steve, and Rochelle. And Phil, you're hearing this, right? Okay. Okay. And then I just think, I don't know if my rundown's maybe not updating, but in my rundown it's not right. And then after we do those 3, the next one is also social media. So I'll read that one and then kind of flip-flop who's talking about it. Correct. My rundown doesn't say that though, but I don't know why. It doesn't matter as long as it's right in the prompter. 30 seconds now. Yeah, mine only has Tony in the entire B section. I don't know why. There's no other questions in there. But it could just be my computer. 15 seconds. Welcome back to our live conversation on mental health. We continue to answer your questions. We see them coming in. You can also join the conversation live right now on Facebook. So jumping right into those questions, we see a lot of you are writing about social media. So let's start with Rochelle. She said, put the cell phone down a little more, interact with other people. This new world is based on technology. Melissa says parents need to get their kids off of social media, teach them core values, bring religion back into their lives. Schools need to look at how they're addressing bullying situations. If they think they're doing enough, they need to do more. Parent education needs to be offered. More student workshops should be in place. Our district turns their cheek to the issue from what I feel is a fear of acknowledging that there's a problem because they want to maintain this perfect image of the district. Steve also weighing in saying bullying has been around since the caveman, but now kids are taught to be victims and taught to report it and that the schools can help. That makes you a snitch. And the only way to stop a bully is to stand up to them and let the kid know that you have their back no matter what. So a lot to digest there. So Dr. Matheis, I'm going to start with you. Obviously people making that connection between bullying and social media.
Absolutely. And the outreach or the reach, I should say, of the bullying when it does happen electronically is much more widespread than it was when we were in school and there was no social media and just one person spoke to another. So there's the danger in that can be devastating to a child who's seeing how many people have liked a post or have commented on the post and whether there are attacks, the reach of it is so much bigger and is so much more dangerous for our kids. So that piece worries me.
Yeah, absolutely. Addie also saying, imagine being 15 and seeing a post on Instagram with your so-called friends having fun, but you were not invited. And, it is interesting because sometimes, yes, there's direct bullying, but then there's also, a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on, Dr. Jarkhan.
I agree. And that more talks to the idea of marginalizing people and isolating people. And that's a whole different conversation. But clearly, it's a type of bullying, neglect, and so on. I wanted to talk a little bit about the social media piece in general, as per all your questions, which is, we talk a lot about parents needing to control and our kids and so on. I think the most important thing to do is understand that parents are people, and parents need to address their own issues first. We are the people that our children are looking up to. We are mentors. We need to address our own mental health so that we can be available to our kids. And in terms of how to get kids to talk more about their mental health and more about their symptoms, be open, start the conversation, tell them what you went through during the pandemic, how difficult it was. It doesn't make you look weak. It makes you look realistic, and it gives them strategies to emulate as to how to navigate their own mental health issues. In terms of the idea of, making our children, turn our children into victims, unfortunately, we don't have that power. It's other people that turn people into victims. And I don't think it's snitching to get help for it. I think it's important to be resilient, but also to understand that when you are a victim, you are entitled to be protected and to be saved.
All right, Don joining the conversation saying the U.S. has an extreme crisis of loneliness, Liz.
Absolutely. We were all isolated. We all felt it, adults and kids alike. We missed out on a lot of milestones and a lot of social interactions with people, with family members, with schools, with our friends. And a lot of us, and I think what we're seeing a lot of, and I'm again with my own kids, is we're overcompensating for the time that we lost and trying to do it all to make up for that. And it's just not really possible.
Right. Miles says it isn't just social media. There's something to the access, the 24/7 nature, being overstimulated. The phone itself really just tricks our mind, Dr. Jarkhan.
I think that's true. And I see that in my own practice as well, not only with kids and adolescents, but with adults as well, who tell me, I can't go to sleep at night because I'm sitting there scrolling through, and it's not checking emails for work necessarily, but it's looking at, what are my friends doing and what's happening on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and on and on and on. It's a matter of discipline. And again, it's a matter of emulating that discipline. We can all sit and watch it all the time, but let's have a time period. Let's say we'll give each other, a half an hour. We'll all get this out of the way, and then we'll spend time as a family together.
Sam says teenage girls weren't okay long before TikTok and Instagram. The teens who are now older were inundated with images of a perfect woman every single day from magazines, billboards, and TV shows showing us these perfect images of women, of how we were supposed to look, Dr. Matheis.
It absolutely has a huge impact on self-image. And I think the biggest thing is communicating with our kids and having conversations that what you see on social media is not 100% accurate all the time. We know that there are all sorts of apps that take away acne, that slim the waist, that make other curves bigger. And it all depends on what's important to that one person. And all the posing with friends, it's a moment and it's created. It may not be real. And I think it's important for our kids to know that it's not always truthful. And the other piece with, we can't take social media away. That's too hard. And it's not realistic, but we can limit our kids' exposure by having times of not having access to the phone, turning in the phone at night so that our kids can sleep and they're not disturbed by the notifications, or they don't have the urge to turn to the phone.
Amy from New Jersey, I think, poses a great question. She says, how to effectively talk to your kids about cyberbullying? So Dr. Jarkhan, I'm going to give that one to you.
I think that's a great question. I think whether it's cyberbullying, whether it's physical on-site bullying, the conversation needs to be had with parents explaining that bullies are people who are unhappy. Because a lot of times, victims think that bullies are all that. They're all, controlled and happy in their life. They're not. And for someone to have to go out of their way to make you uncomfortable, regardless of what that is, means that they're having issues. So while that's easy to explain, it's not difficult for a kid to say, well, but I'm still being bullied. It's a matter of telling them it's okay to share it. It's okay to share it with me. We will have strategies as to how to navigate it, both at home and in school.
All right, coming up next, we are going to continue this live conversation, and we will have that 2-minute takeaway. We do see all your questions, and we're going to try to keep answering them. We have so many people commenting right now, and I wish that we had time to get them all in here.
For sure.
Okay, so here's my question. Do you think that we could split the 2-minute takeaway into 1 minute for each of you, so that way we can spend another 2 minutes on questions? I would love to be able to include what people are asking. Okay, so let me just do a little housekeeping for a second. Stacy from the Bronx says parents need to be more involved in their kids' life, asking questions about their day, trusting their parents will be there for them, whatever the problem is. So can we move Stacy from the Bronx into the C section and put her right next to Amy? Oh, no, not Amy. Just kidding. Where did that one I just went go? It was somebody who, Alejandra from Long Island. Can we put her next to Stacy from the Bronx? And I'll read both of those back to back. Because she says, one thing that helped me as a mom was just to keep my daughter talking and not overreact when she shared anything that was on her mind or stressing her out. So I think if we have time to get to kind of both of those and the conversations to have as parents. And then if we have time, we'll get to Tony. He's a little bit longer, but it's about, setting an example and being positive. Okay. Yeah, mine is still not updating, so I can't see the questions that are in there are not in my rundown. Phil, if I go backwards right now, can you pull up those full screens? Okay, hold on. He'll be third. No, it would be, it was Alejandra and maybe it was Stacy, I think, from the Bronx. Do you have Stacy? Yes, Stacy and Alejandra back to back. Okay, you could do that? I appreciate it. Now the weird thing is now Stacy is completely blank in here. So hopefully it will. You have Stacy? Okay, so when you put her up there, I'm just going to read it from here without glasses. So nobody laugh at me as I lean all the way forward and squint. Okay. We're just having a little computer problem. So bear with me. 10 seconds. Continuing this live conversation on mental health, and we want to get to as many of your questions and comments as we can. So we're going to start with Stacy, who's from the Bronx, who said parents need to be more involved in their kids' life, asking questions about their day, trusting that their parents will be there for them, whatever the problem is. Amy from New Jersey, Alejandra from Long Island rather, said, one thing that helped me as a mom was keeping my daughter talking and not overreacting when she started to share things that were on her mind or stressing her out. So Dr. Matheis, I'm going to give that to you and really having that parental conversation.
I say this all the time to the parents I work with. Listen, validate, and don't necessarily try to fix, but listen. And the more you listen without judgment, and a lot of the things that we're going to hear are going to make us want to jump out of our skin. Be aware of that, but hold on to that reaction. You can take care of that later, but listen and really validate with comments like, I'm sorry, that sounds so hard. What would you like to do about that? And don't fix, don't problem solve for them. Don't say like, I'm going to call your guidance counselor or I'm going to call your teacher. But rather, how do you think you want to handle this? Because that builds their ability to recognize what's going on and problem solve. And then you can help them, but you won't do it for them. Because these are skills that our kids are going to need. And this is certainly not the first time they're going to face some kind of social challenge. It's going to happen again in college. It's going to happen in graduate school. It's going to happen with their employer. It's going to happen all the time. So figuring out how you tend to respond to this how you react, and then how you want to problem solve.
Okay. Now it is time for that 2-minute takeaway on mental health. So Dr. Jarkhan, I'm going to start with you. And I know you wanted to talk about the emotional scars that we have.
The emotional scars from the pandemic continue to run deep. It's evident by the data that we're seeing. The mental health of our youth is critical. It needs to be prioritized, and it requires a multifaceted approach with parents, school, and physicians. Additionally, schools do have the power to make the change. They need to continue with their proactive agendas. They need to offer evidence-based policies, screenings for suicide potential, screenings for bullying. They need to offer groups, because this is a collective trauma that all the students are going through, and there are strength in numbers. And finally, we didn't get a chance to talk about the DEIB, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, which is a huge part that needs to be emphasized, because disparity and inequity in mental health exist, both in accessibility and in getting services. It needs to be addressed, and it needs to be corrected.
Yeah, and Dr. Matheis, I know you wanted to talk about, the facts that are out there.
The facts are that our girls, our teenage girls, this is a time of usual low self-esteem, building your identity, your bodies is changing, your friendships are changing. So it's a time of like emotional tumult and chaos as it is. With the pandemic and the emotional starvation and the collective trauma, which was so beautifully said, Dr. Jarkhan, I think our girls are really struggling to figure out where they fit in. Social media is not helping. Having this time of emotional and physical deprivation from other people hasn't helped. And having that support at home and at school, and the two places communicating with each other all the time, and rather than going the punitive route, go the more supportive route, because that's what our kids really need right now. Not another in-school suspension or a lunch detention, but rather to be heard.
All right. Thank you both so much for your time and getting to so many different topics and so many questions today. I really do appreciate it. Tomorrow, we're going to focus on your health. We're taking a look at that new study that says there's a link between zero-calorie sweetener and heart attack and stroke, plus the CDC issuing a warning over an increase in a drug-resistant bacteria. Yay!